Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare
Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakta Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
भगवान की जय।
So we're starting verse 34 today, but let's read the English of 33.
I think 33 we were probably,
we finished, didn't we?
No.
We didn't.
We did not finish it. Yeah.
We did finish, didn't we?
I think we finished till here actually.
Oh, where will we get to? Okay, let's go back to 33 then.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's read the translation again and we'll continue with 33. For some reason I thought we'd finished. Even?
Yeah, I don't think we finished actually. Yeah.
No, we didn't. Okay.
Yeah.
So
the shlok and translation.
Shlok and translation, then we'll continue.
Ahamevasame nanyada yat sat sat param akshadaham yadetache yo avshishritya so ashyam ashyamaham. Brahma, it's I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation when there was nothing but myself, nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead, and after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead.
Okay, so we're at even the devotees. I guess. Yes, okay. Okay. Okay, the impersonalist adduces no activity in the Supreme. But in this discussion between Brahma and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord is said to have activities also, as he has his form and quality. He's got his form, quality, and activities. The activities of Brahma and other demigods during the maintenance of the creation are to be understood as the activities of the Lord. The king, or the executive head of a state, may not be seen in the government offices, for he may be engaged in royal comforts. Yet, it should be understood that everything is being done under his direction and everything is at his command. The personality of Godhead is never formless.
In the material world, he may not be visible in his personal form to the less intelligent class of men, and therefore he may sometimes be called formless. But actually, he's always in his eternal form in his Vaikuntha planets as well as in other planets of the universes as different incarnations. The example of the sun is very appropriate in this connection. The sun in the night may not be visible to the eye of man in the darkness, but the sun is visible wherever it has risen. But the sun is not visible to the eyes of the inhabitants particular part of the earth does not mean that the sun has no form.
Another paragraph. So let's talk about this verse, this paragraph. This is Prabhupada, one of Prabhupada's favorite topics, the Mayavadis or the impersonalists. So what is being said here about them? The
less intelligent?
Father Prabhuji and
are less, we could say that they're less intelligent, spiritually less intelligent. They may be scientists, they may be philosophers, but they're spiritually less intelligent. They, first sentence, what does it say the impersonalist doesn't attribute to the Supreme?
Not
They believe that a personality, the Supreme Lord is formless, while this thing says that personality of God is never formless,
And he says that there's no activities.
Yeah.
In the spiritual world, that there's just nothing happening. It's just an idea of somehow or other. If in this material world we do things and we suffer from, like, having to work or getting a headache or getting sick, well, in the spiritual world, this would be nothing. That's what they're saying. Nothing happens. But here it says that there's, the Lord has qualities, he has form, and he has activities. Yes, you're saying, Madhava.
Yeah, so without form, as the impersonalists say, if there is no form, then of course they have a region, there should be no activity. But here Prabhupada says, give an example of an administrator, a king. He may not be visible, but all the activities in kingdom or wherever under his direction. So one can understand this sometimes not having a form, but still there is activity. He's always active. A formless thing cannot be active, but in this case there is some other possibility. Little yes, they can assume formless, but cannot see in material world, but he's behind everything. Activity means form, right?
And a less intelligent person might think the king is just always sitting on his throne doing nothing. They think of the king is in the throne room sitting there, but actually the king likes to go out and play golf. The king's got a yacht, and he goes swimming. He's got a family, he's got a wife, he does activities. He likes to hike in the woods. And they're thinking the king, he just sits there, he's got a crown on his head, and maybe he'll just, find certain people guilty of a crime or give awards to people, but he does nothing. But actually, it's described here that the king's got all these activities, and he has all these activities because he's so powerful. He gets everybody else to do the work for him.
Yes.
So Krishna is so powerful, he just plays with the gopis and turns the whole thing over to somebody else. Vishnu.
Brahma.
And then Vishnu turns it over to Brahma. So in this way, everybody else is working, but Krishna is having a good time.
That is also activity, having good time.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate. If you were going to live forever, wouldn't you want to do something that's fun forever and not, who would want to stay in the office forever?
Like Madhav Prabhu is right now having a good time, but you can hear that some people are working in the background.
Some people are Madhav is in control, and therefore he doesn't have to work.
You see, Krishna is graceful. He gives enough money, so I don't have to work. It flows, and I'm having fun. It doesn't mean I'm not working.
Yes.
I'm busy 7 days. I'm busy 7 days a week Whereas in office, I was busy only 5 days a week. So actually I have more activities.
Well, Krishna is busy all the time too. He
Of
has to
course.
rendezvous with Radharani, and then he has to play ball with the boys. And then
Yes.
he has to go home and have lunch,
Yes, Prabhuji.
dinner.
Yes.
So all day long he's having fun.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments or thoughts? We'll never get through the whole verse.
I think the same applies to the sun, right? The sun is also active, isn't it? All the time.
Yes.
The sun. Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
And the point that is being made is that even though we may not see the Supreme Lord in person, the person who doesn't see the sun during the night doesn't realize that, or realizes that the sun is still there, but he doesn't see it. Okay.
Okay, next verse. We can do the next 2 paragraphs, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is the hymn Atme Vedam Agra Asit Purush Vidha. This mantra indicates the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, even before the appearance of the Purush incarnation. In the Bhagavad Gita 15:18, it is said that Lord Krishna is Purushottam because he is the Supreme Purush, transcendental even to the Purush Akshar and the Purush Shar.
Deo?
The Akshar Purush or the Mahavishnu throws his glance over Prakriti or material nature, but the Purushottam existed even before that. The Aranyaka Upanishad therefore confirms the statement of the Bhagavad Gita that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Person, Purushottam. In some of the Vedas, it is also said that in the beginning only the impersonal Brahman existed. However, according to this verse, the impersonal Brahman, which is the glowing effulgence of the body of the Supreme Lord, may be called the immediate cause, but the cause of all causes and the remote cause is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Okay.
The Lord's impersonal feature is existing in the material world because by material senses or material eyes, the Lord cannot be seen or perceived. One has to specialize the senses before one can expect to see or perceive the Supreme Lord. But he is always engaged in his personal capacity and is eternally visible to the inhabitants of Vaikuntha Loka face to face.
Mayur?
Therefore, he is materially impersonal, just as the executive head of the state may be impersonal in the government offices, although he is not impersonal in the government house. Similarly, the Lord is not impersonal in his abode, which is always Nirashta Kuhakum, as stated in the very beginning of Bhagavatam. Therefore, both the impersonal and personal features of the Lord are acceptable as mentioned in the revealed scriptures. Hare Krishna.
Vijay?
The personality of Godhead is very emphatically explained in the Bhagavad Gita. In connection with the verse, Brahmano hi pratishtatam. Therefore, in all ways, the confidential part of the spiritual knowledge is realization of the personality of Godhead, and not his impersonal Brahman feature. One should therefore have his ultimate aim of realization not in the impersonal feature, but in the personal feature of the absolute truth.
Sima?
The example of the sky within the pot and the sky outside the pot may be helpful to the student for his realization of all pervading quality of the cosmic consciousness of the absolute truth. But that does not mean that the individual part and parcel of Lord becomes the supreme by a false claim. It means only that the conditioned soul is a victim of the illusory energy in her last snare.
Madhav Prabhu? Unmute Prabhu.
To claim to be one with the cosmic consciousness of the Lord is the last trap set by the illusory energy or Daivi Maya. Even in the impersonal existence of the Lord, as it is in the material creation, one should aspire for personal realization of the Lord, and that is the meaning of Paschad Aham Yad Itach Chayo Vaiseshyata Sosmi Aham. Brahmaji also accepted the same truth when he was instructing Narad. He said, Soyam se Visista Tata Bhagavan Viswa Bhavana.
So can we go back to the first of the two paragraphs? The Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad. This may seem a little bit complicated, but it is a very simple point being made here. Does anybody know what the point being made here is? It's a simple and really important point.
That Krishna is called Purushottama, is a person, the most, I think, the highest level of a person.
Yes, highest level. He is the supreme Purusha, Purushottama, the highest Purusha. Purusha means controller. Purusha means that Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Verse 15.
Purusha means a person.
Yeah. What's the first word of the Brahma Samhita? What's the first line of the Brahma Samhita? I forget. Aham Adira, but can't remember. First line of the Brahma Samhita, who remembers?
Krishna still.
Krishna, it's a second. First line. Let's go to the first verse of the Brahma Samhita. It just went on my head. Ishvara Parama Krishna. There it is. So Ishvara Parama Krishna. So he's the supreme controller. Purusha and Ishvara, same thing, means controller. So there are a lot of controllers, but the supreme controller, as Madhava so aptly said, is Krishna, Purushottama. And it says here that he is the supreme controller, Purusha. He's transcendental even to the Purusha Akshara, and the Purusha Akshara is Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu's God, but he's God who's just getting power from Krishna, even though he's God. So Krishna's beyond all that.
And let's click on this verse 15, chapter 15, verse 18 from the Bhagavatam. What Krishna is saying there. Because I am transcendental, I am both the fallible and the infallible. And because I am the greatest, I'm celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that supreme person. So he's declaring he is the supreme person, Purushottam.
So, any other questions or thoughts about this paragraph? Krishna, as Madhava aptly said, Purushottama, highest Purusha, highest personality. Even Lord Vishnu is below him.
Lord Vishnu is Krishna himself in a different function.
Yeah.
Not somebody else, the same. It's the same
person,
but with a different function.
There's an important sentence in the next paragraph. It says, one has to spiritualize the senses before one can expect to see or perceive the Supreme Lord. Earlier, it said it's easy for people actually, in one sense, to see the in person, but you have to have purified senses to see the Supreme Lord. Somebody should mute.
There's a lot of noise in the background, needs to be muted.
So that's what the process of Krishna consciousness is. It's to purify our senses. And there's another verse in the Brahma Samhita is Premanjana Charita Bhakti Velochanena Santasadaiva Hridayeshu Veloka Yanti. Premanjana Charita Bhakti Veloka. In other words, one has to the eyes of the devotee who's purified, he sees Krishna with the eyes purified by the salve of love. So the idea is that we have to have purified senses in order to perceive Krishna. Otherwise, what happens is that we can't perceive Krishna with our impersonal senses and our impersonal mind, or imperfect mind, and contaminated senses. And then, if we don't have the mercy of a pure devotee, we think, oh, light, the Supreme Lord's just, or the Supreme is just a light or an energy, because we can't perceive the actual personality.
It says here after the verse 14:27, I think I'm in the right paragraph.
Yes, you are.
It says, therefore, in all ways, the confidential part of spiritual knowledge is the realization of the personality of Godhead. That's the goal, realization of the personality of Godhead. Yeah, right here. It's right below where it says Bhagavad Gita 14:27. It's about 7 lines down. Therefore, in all ways, the confidential part of spiritual knowledge is realization of the personality of Godhead and not his impersonal Brahman feature. If we just look at the Bhagavad Gita, what is Krishna saying from beginning to end? First, he's a person. He's giving instruction to Arjuna. He's declaring himself to be the supreme person in many verses. And he explains that the Brahman effulgence is just, he is the source of the Brahman effulgence. That's part of him, but he is the source of that. So the whole text here, the whole verse plus all the explanation is just to convince the reader that Krishna is not an impersonal force, that Krishna is the supreme person, that he manifests himself as the Paramatma, and that he is the all-pervasive energy in the material world. We don't see him, but we see all his manifestation. It's not a very difficult concept, actually.
Gajendraji, could you click on verse 14:27? It's it's up there. If you scroll back, 14:27.
Yes, right there, yeah.
And could somebody read that? Maybe Parag, you could read that verse.
And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional possession of ultimate happiness.
This is it, right here. Brahmano hi pratishtaham. The impersonal Brahman, that energy that all these yogis and different kinds of yoga groups are looking for, is coming from the bodily rays of the Lord. He's the basis of that impersonal Brahman, and that Brahman is immortal, imperishable, and eternal. But beyond that Brahman effulgence is the constitutional position, which is the ultimate happiness, which is Krishna as a person and our relationship with him. this is, again, Krishna speaking in Bhagavad Gita himself to Arjuna. Arjuna, here's the truth. It's me, the person. Thank you. And no, one last thing I think we want to look at here is to claim to become one, to be one with the cosmic consciousness of the Lord is the last trap of the illusory energy or Daivi Maya. Krishna has two kinds of Maya. His Yoga Maya, that's what everybody in the spiritual world is working in, his divine energy, his love, and his play in Vrindavan, and other, and in the Vaikuntha lokas also, the play of the Lord, and in Ayodhya where Ram is. But in the material world, we have a different kind of Maya. That's called Mahamaya or Daivi Maya, and that is the separated energy of the Lord. And here Prabhupada's making the claim that when people think they're becoming one with Krishna, Prabhupada gave an example. He said, in the material world, we want to become the best of something. I want to be the most beautiful. Krishna, of course, is Bhagavan. He's the most beautiful, the most intelligent, the strongest, the most renounced, the wealthiest, and the most, what?
Famous.
And the most famous. So he's got all 6 of the opulences. So we want one of those, or all of them. So we're trying to get this, and Prabhupada said, so when we become frustrated in this material world that I become even the president, that's not enough. So then we want to become God. And the only way we can become God with our limited vision is we think we're going to merge with this energy. And guess what? This is the last snare of Maya. Maya's the illusion to think that you're God. That's the last trick she's got to keep us from becoming pure. So very important point. Person thinks they're becoming pure, but actually they're getting snagged by Maya at the last instant. Any other thoughts or questions? This is pretty deep.
Let's move on.
We have one more paragraph, so we can finish up this time.
Are we done?
We have to read, before we get to this, we have to read the 3 lines above. Ramaji also accepted that. No, well, the translation and everything.
No.
Brahmaji also.
Go ahead, sir.
Brahmaji also accepted the same truth when he was instructing Narada. He said, "So yam te bhitas tata bhagavan vishva bhavana." There is no
And
other.
I'm sorry, if you click on this Bhagavatam 2.750, we can see what this verse is saying.
My dear son, I have now explained in brief the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is creator of the manifested worlds. Without him, Hare, the Lord, there are no other causes of the phenomenal and nominal existences.
That's from instructing Narada.
Okay, you can continue.
We can continue with the other verse.
There is no other cause of all causes than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hare. Therefore, this verse, Aham Eva, never indicates anything other than the Supreme Lord, and one should therefore follow the path of the Brahma Sampradaya, or the path from Brahmaji to Narada, to Vyasadeva, etc., and make it a point in life to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hare, or Lord Krishna.
Sonali?
This very confidential instruction to the pure devotees of the Lord was also given to Arjuna and to Brahma in the beginning of the creation. The demigods like Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, Indra, Chandra, and Varuna are undoubtedly different forms of the Lord for execution of different functions. The different elemental ingredients of material creation, as well as the multifarious energies, also may be of the same personality of Godhead. but the root of all of them is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. One should be attached to the root of everything rather than bewildered by the branches and leaves. That is the instruction given in this verse.
Can I ask a question? Does this verse seem to be very deeply philosophical and hard to understand?
The verse itself?
And the purport? You can be honest, it's pretty deep. But there's a simple way for us to kind of understand this. And I'll give you a story that Prabhupada gave a funny answer one time to a devotee many, many years ago, early on. It was Vishnu John Swami. He was a very advanced devotee who left this world untimely back in the 1970s, very advanced, led wonderful kirtans. And at one point, he said, "Oh, Prabhupada, are there any instruments that can measure how Krishna conscious we are?" And he was thinking maybe some sort of like oscilloscope or telescope or microscope or some kind of like something you plug into your head. And Prabhupada said, "Oh, yes, there are instruments, the mridanga and the kartals." In other words, by hearing a kirtan and singing in kirtan, everything comes clear. So let's not get all, this philosophy is very, very complete and it can get very deep. We should never feel, oh, it's beyond my ability to understand, because everybody sitting here understands something. But the real essence is coming together with devotees for sweet kirtans, for sharing the philosophy together, for taking prasadam, for just relishing japa when we can, and seeing the beautiful deities. It's very simple. And when we just do those simple things like chant together, like when we do have these wonderful kirtans with Gajendra Prabhu, which we'll again have eventually, those 5-hour wonderful kirtans, everything becomes clear. And then the philosophy we catch as much as we can, but never feel that, oh, it's too much.
I think it would be important to read this verse again, the translation of the verse, before we go on to the next one, so we tie them together. If you can go to the very beginning of verse 33. Somebody wants to read? Gajendra Prabhu, you want to read this verse?
Just read the translation.
Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself, nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead, and after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead.
Before going on to the next verse, anybody have any parting thoughts or questions about any of all of what we've been reading?
I think we're going to read the next one. Yeah. Get started.
Maybe Gajendra has a comment.
I think one thing that comes out of this is that line which says the spiritualization. That Lord has a form that only when you're spiritual, you have that spiritual, that you'll be able to see that form. And so I was thinking that when Lord was giving sermon to Arjuna, the Virat Rup that Lord showed was only after he gave his divine eyes to Arjun, which means advanced people like Arjun also could not see that Rup. It was still considered, Krishna was still considered a person, right? People were looking at a person while he's really the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we have to be really advanced spiritually. So Prabhuji, I really agree with you that, doing kirtan, especially with devotees, that's the way to go, because this philosophy is deep. And if you get into philosophy, then we'll lose the sense of where we want to go and what we want to achieve. And so there's an easy way out while also understanding the philosophy. So
Yes, very good point.
And also, you know, what we're looking here is not to become very philosophically adept.
exactly.
We're looking to become servants, loving servants of the Supreme, because that's what we are. So to actually kind of disclose our real nature, which is one of service, but service in love with the Supreme. And some people may go through the philosophical process, but we will see in chapter 12 what Krishna has to say about the philosophical process. It is important to have a philosophical base foundation. It's very important, but that's not the answer. The answer is, how are we going to learn to love God? That's the answer.
A couple things. Prabhupada said that we read these books and learn the philosophy to help us chant better. Because it's chanting that will ultimately make us purified. And another thing is that in the ultimate reality, in Goloka Vrindavan, the highest devotees are the gopis and the gopas. And these little boys and these girls, they are not philosophers.
No.
They're just playing with God.
They're lovers, yeah.
And if you would come to them and talk to them about some kind of philosophy, they don't care who Schopenhauer was or Nietzsche or any of this stuff. They don't care about systematic theology. They just want to make sure that Krishna is happy, one way or another.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, I have one small thing to say.
Yes.
Don't turn your camera off.
Looks like he knocked down his camera, yeah.
Okay. Now it is okay?
There we are. Okay, we're back.
Okay, sorry. So actually, I just momentarily thought that actually similar kind of thing also, as we say, this world is perverted reflection of the spiritual world. In fact, the same thing like science and technology. Science is a theoretical part unless it is converted by experiment into real thing like a computer or anything, that science is useless. Similarly, actually, this philosophy is very good. But when we become devotee, do kirtan, as you're saying, gopas and gopis are playing with Krishna, then it is the perfection of that science or philosophy. So same thing.
Yeah.
Great.
Very good point.
And here's another way to look at this. A little a 5-year-old kid who grows up in the United States speaks pretty good English. But if you ask him about the rules of grammar, he couldn't possibly get it. But there's somebody in Russia right now who's 35 trying to learn English, and they learn all the rules of grammar, and they can't speak a word of English because they're just struggling trying to learn it. So the kid who grows up with it, he has it right. So we just want to ultimately grow up with it and be with it. And rules and regulations, it doesn't really matter in the end.
That's what Prabhupada always said when we read, utility is the principle. So unless it turns into utility, we can use it. So worthless, that knowledge has no meaning. And it is more joyful, becomes blissful when we realize, and that is the way to realize that knowledge, that philosophy, that science, whatever it is.
Yeah, actually, this transcendental knowledge, the purpose of it is to transform our consciousness.
Yeah.
Transform, so that we can start to develop the spiritual vision. Yes. That's what the purpose is.
And that's the purpose of our Friday get-togethers, is to transform our consciousness so that the rest of the week we remember Krishna even more.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's going beyond intelligence, right?
That's beyond intelligence. Yes. Transcendental.
Yeah.
Or if you never forget, you don't have to remember.
There you go. Perfect.
Well, actually,
it reminds us that Krishna. We should always remember Krishna in whatever we are doing in life. The point is the helpless Lord.
That's exactly right. The sum and substance of everything is to always remember Krishna, like you say, and never forget him. That's it. That's it.
The problem is even when we are chanting, we go away from Krishna.
Yes. Therefore, we have to keep practicing, and we have to put ourselves in a place. And we're all, all of us are conditioned. So what we need to do when we chant, we have to make what's a sankalpa. I'm going to chant now, and I'm not going to get distracted, and I'm going to spend the next X amount of time seriously in a quiet place, in a place free from distraction, and try our best to keep the mind on the out of the picture, so to speak.
That brings me to the case of the surgeon who is doing some brain surgery. He cannot afford to get distracted, and this is much more important than doing brain surgery. This is doing heart surgery, soul surgery. It has to be completely focused for it to be effective.
Yeah, if you have a brain surgeon who's checking his text messages while he's operating, you got the wrong.
Yeah, if you see the college applications, right, and the students apply, the college applications, they always have an essay to be written on what matters you the most. So what matters you the most, right? So if you say, Sri Krishna matters me the most, then you can explain that, right? Or what I'm trying to really say is, so when you are trying to chant or whatever you are trying to do, like reading Gita, reading Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and if you think that Sri Krishna matters me the most, then I think we'll be able to, fully dedicate ourselves. And
that's the beginning right there. That's a very good point. Beginning, a place to start from.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Yes. Do we have time for the next? No.
No. Time for our kirtan now.
All right, we'll start the kirtan.
Thank you for everyone for joining. Friday night.
Friday next week.
Okay, well, after the end.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna,
Haribo.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So have a good weekend, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Good to see
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
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 Hare Krishna.